You're listening to the Ottawa Real Estate Podcast, brought to you by Referral Mortgages and Blue Panda Realty, with your hosts, Paul Stevenson, David Warren, and Greg Campbell. Let's see what's going on in the world of real estate in our nation's capital.
Good morning.
Yes.
Amazing. I never know. We never know what's going to happen when we fire up the cameras. Just get silly. Today is one of the last weeks in April. We're buzzing. We were talking. It's funny. It feels like just yesterday I said we're a quarter of the way through the year. Well, now we're 4/12 of the way through the year. Or a third. We went from a quarter to a third. How's everything been going? What have you guys been seeing? A lot of changes this week. I know we're going to touch on the budget, some Airbnb stuff. We had a request from one of our listeners to talk about condos. Mm-hmm. But why don't we start by introducing ourselves, since I completely missed that. Greg?
Who are you, Paul?
My name's Paul Stevenson. I am one of the hosts of the Ottawa Real Estate Podcast, and I'm also an owner and mortgage agent at Referral Mortgages.
My name is Greg Campbell. I'm a partner and realtor at Blue Panda Realty, and also a host of the Ottawa Real Estate Podcast, the most informative show on real estate in Ottawa's real estate market. We'll work on that one, right?
Wow. In the greater Ottawa area.
I was close. In the greater Ottawa area.
The GOA.
I was close. Yeah.
And I'm David Warren, co-host of the Ottawa Real Estate Podcast here in Ottawa. Also a mortgage agent and owner of Referral Mortgages, local Ottawa mortgage brokerage with offices across Ontario now.
This is what I love about the show is we come on here. We're all just so goddamn comfortable with each other that we can just talk. You know, we're basically announcing ourselves just for the listeners, but we obviously
yeah, exactly. And we don't take ourselves too seriously, which it can be a problem in business at times.
It can. So big announcement.
I mean, people taking themselves too seriously can be a problem.
Yes, yeah.
Not having fun.
Big week across the country in many facets, but primarily for us, the federal budget proposal kind of came out Monday, at least what they're hoping to push through. It's now gone to voting, right, David? So what were your kind of main takeaways from the federal budget, and what can people expect to see as far as changes coming up in the market?
I mean, it being the first budget in 2 years that the feds have put out is, certainly interesting. Obviously, historically high deficit that you'll see and big spending coming out of the pandemic. From a real estate standpoint, which is obviously what we're focusing on, some interesting ones. Nationwide vacancy tax on vacant properties to stem the tide of speculative buying by foreign buyers or even of individuals within Canada. I thought that was interesting. There's it's been going on. Vancouver, I think, announced it. They've had it for a few years now. Toronto brought it in, but the fact they're going to put it nationwide, I think, is a good thing. At least on from my end, my perspective. The other was, what the hell were we talking about right before this? I'm missing the other main one. Yeah, on the budget. Shoot.
What else were we talking about?
The stress testing?
I can't even remember.
Stress test?
No. We did that last week.
Well, no, but that was 2 weeks ago. The luxury goods tax,
vacancy tax.
Yeah, vacancy. We'll kind of see how things roll from that into all other areas. I mean, it's not something that vacancy tax isn't something that's going to be a drastic change in supply, but or properties on the market, stemming the tide there. But combine that with this new stress test for 20% and up, which, really is kind of looking more at the higher end price points and what that stress test is affecting. It's not affecting anyone with high ratio mortgages, meaning less than 20% down. So that'll be interesting to see how that kind of flows through everything else. And also obviously this additional, crazy spending. I think it's about $400 billion that is tabled for the budget. And a lot of that's, spending within infrastructure in Canada. So that'll be an interesting thing to see how that bumps up different economies and how that affects real estate. And they also announced, recently last week that there was an article talking about the increase in immigration. They've opened up the borders more for 2021, 400,000. They've increased that target for immigration to 400,000 new people to Canada, which is a great thing. The problem that we've keep talking about, and Minister Freeland even touched on, is that the main issue being supply, and none of these rules and none of these changes with vacancy tax or anything don't address supply, which is the biggest issue. You bring, we have 400,000 coming to Canada, which is great. However, you need to house them. And this then pushes, they need housing, affordable housing. And then this pushes the people that are already in affordable housing. Where do they go? And so I know there is, I think it's about $1.25 billion allocated for increasing affordable housing, but it'll be interesting to see how that ripple effect has on the affordable housing area, but then also into that first time home buyer or people getting into the market of owning and not renting, and kind of that ripple effect, how that these other changes, whether they make any impact. So,
and I guess a big part of this too is like new build construction that's like not happening as aggressively as it has in the past. So how in the world do we accommodate all this immigration? So like, it can't be all resale. I mean, I know there's still new builds happening, but it's just not nearly to the capacity that it was before because of what's been going on. And the cost.
You just need flat out new product. I was speaking to a builder yesterday, small builder doing custom homes, and their build cost per square foot is $350. They're building higher end homes. This was 2.5 years ago, build costs were in and around, $175 or $225 a square foot on, going high end. They're seeing $350 right now based on increased costs in windows and lumber, doors, anything manufacturing, anything wood product. Plywood. Yeah. It's, costs have really, escalated.
I was on site of property yesterday, and we were looking at kind of insulation and things like that. And there was a piece of, maybe 5 foot by 5 foot plywood on the wall. And I looked at it, and he was like, wow, you can just rip that down. And I thought to myself, that's a $1,000 piece of plywood right there. We got to put that on eBay or something. Supplies are through the roof right now. Even people wanting to do home renovations. I know like all supplies are down. Home Depot is a disaster. Anyone who's dealt with Home Depot in the last few months, as far as the main supply chain is a disaster. And I know even, I was speaking to a small builder as well this week, and they were saying that they've had to go into deep, like rural parts of Quebec in order to get wood. Like they can't even get them. Like typically they go across the border, get them from some companies just on the Quebec side. Now they're having to go into like deep rural Quebec just to get supplies, which is pretty wild. And now if you're getting checked at the border saying that you need some wood, that could slow things down even further. So
I have a client that is trying to do renovations to his duplex that he just bought and update the entire basement. They can't get lumber for that. They are like, there's none available, and their project is completely stalled because of it. It's and that's just small renovation, and it's certainly that the supply chain issue is ongoing, and I mean, who the hell knows when that's going to let up as well.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like the whole budget, the potential budget based on a lot of these things is just like, it's not going to. Anyways, nothing's going as planned, obviously.
No, and rates are, Bank of Canada held their overnight rate as well this week. So that was something that was, kind of relevant for us, but just means that, they expect still, I think it was end of 2022. They're saying now they probably will increase that overnight rate, which is still another year and a bit that you can benefit from the low variables and low variable rates and so on.
And that's only if the economy expands at a drastic rate that they'll touch it end of 2022.
Yeah, so they're thinking they had to keep an eye on inflation, which was kind of the main factor there, and they want to make sure that they're not increasing it too fast. Where it, there's still a lot of people that are in tough positions financially right now because of the pandemic and restrictions and so on, and you just can't raise them too fast, too quick, too fast, or else or too high, too fast, or otherwise that creates a whole other wheel of problems, right?
Mm-hmm.
That wheel of problems.
A wheel of
We don't
problems.
want.
The whole wheel of cheese.
Oh God! I just had. Anyways, I just had those visions of people that sit in those tires and roll down the hills.
Oh yeah,
it's like
I also
that's what
have
it feels like.
that now. Thanks for that. Let's. I want to get into this. Can I dip into this condo thing, guys?
Yeah, do it.
Okay.
Sure.
So yeah, we got a comment last night. Someone messaged us on the page and asked if we could do something about the condo market. So I was up early this morning reading that message, and I figured, why not just dive into this right now and get some numbers for everybody. So what I looked at is basically central Ottawa from Lowertown to Dow's Lake, and then Hintonburg was the furthest west. Basically anything in the city around that zone. And what I did was condos between 300 to 900,000. The most interesting part I thought of this is that there was nothing over 700,000 in terms of condos. It went to 1 million after that, basically, or like high nines into 1 million. So this is basically between 300 to just over 700, 715, I think was the highest sale. So right now, there's in that area alone, in the central Ottawa, there's 97 active condos for sale. 97 condos for sale. There's 54 since April 1st.
Wow.
There's 12 conditionally sold, and there's been 78 sold since April 1st.
Wow.
So that's, there's a lot available, but that's still a pretty big number of sold. Go ahead.
I mean, I was going to say, if you think about it, you said 78 sold since April 1st and 97 on the market currently. I mean, again, you're effectively just about a month worth of supply then on the market. Yeah. Right. If you're thinking about in that area, 78 sold in 3 weeks exactly, almost, or just over. And we're almost at what the supply is out there. That's wild.
Yeah, and the average price is $450. The minimum sale was $325, and the top was that one at $715. It sold for $732. And that's studio, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom. It's all over the map. It's just an average period, right? So now this is really interesting, I thought. So I decided to go into rentals. So
that's going to be one of my questions.
Yeah, so there's 156 active rentals in that same area, central Ottawa condos. Some of those have been on since October 2020, which is mind-blowing. And since April 1st, 36 have rented, and there's 58 new on the market since April 1st. Average price, $2,175, minimum $1,300, max $3,700.
Easter weekend, dog. That's what it is.
That's a lot of rentals.
Yeah.
I mean, that's crazy.
I mean, I think
I'm just doing my show.
I think a lot of that rental market in Centertown is, the issue with people trying to, get tenants and a lot of those vacant properties is really because of, there's no school in right now. You've got, there's no university students really, in the city from maybe outside. And, and then we've got, so we're lacking the students from out of town going to Carleton or Ottawa U. And then as well, I think, you're saying some as far back as October 2020, people just aren't working downtown either. So it'd be interesting to see kind of that rip, if those people just that would typically be renting here, rented in the outskirts instead, for a slightly lesser rate or how that's,
or more space, maybe. But I'm surprised, even 36 rented, 58 new, and then 150 sales. That's like 100 still on the market since dating, potentially from October, November, December, through to April.
Greg, do you know, wow. I don't know if this is even a public stat, but of those properties that are listed, do you know what percentage would be owner occupied? I mean, that's not something that you would be privy to, right?
No.
Because I'm just, with all the stuff coming out about Airbnbs and things like that, I'm just wondering if some people are offloading some potential investment properties, taking their profits and reinvesting elsewhere.
I would imagine.
I wonder if that had any impact on those listings coming out. I mean, obviously time of year has a big impact, but with all the kind of proposed changes and lockdowns, I mean, we know that lockdowns have forced people to look at their lifestyle. And a lot of people are looking for, bit more space, bit more land, willing to move outside the city, that sort of thing. So I just, it'd be interesting to know what the motivations are behind these sellers of the condos.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I personally worked with 2 buyers in the last couple of months that were in that scenario. They were working from home, both had good jobs, working from home in a condo. They moved to Orleans, Barhaven.
Yeah.
You know, they're like, I want more space. I can't live like this anymore.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the federal employees, obviously working from home are able to move elsewhere. And then you've got a huge employer downtown who, right at the beginning, Shopify announced, we talked about it ages ago, but Shopify announced that they were closing their Elgin office, which they have. It's been released now. But that's a huge employer for Centertown that, a lot of those employees that would have been working from that office would hypothetically would have been renting in, Tribeca or, the Gotham or one of those, those condos are in and around kind of close to Elgin. So I think there's a lot of ripple effect there as well with when you combine everything. But to Paul's point about the Airbnb stuff, this just yesterday, the city of Ottawa made some, it's gone now to council, but they've approved some changes to the Airbnb rules, which will again be interesting to see, what supply comes on the market as a result of that.
What are the main takeaways that you saw, Dave, from the proposed changes?
So they followed the same guidelines or same parameters that Toronto instituted in 2019, where you can only Airbnb your primary residence. So up to a maximum of 6 months of the year, or your cottage. So the only properties you can rent are your primary residence or a cottage. You'll need a license. So it's a 2-year license will be $100 or $110 or something of that nature, basically just so that the city knows who's Airbnb from a management standpoint. And they will not be issuing licenses to any corporations. So if you own a rental property in a holding company or anything of that nature, they will not issue there. To a condo, if your unit's in a condo, they will not issue there. Really, they're tightening down what they're going to issue licenses on and monitor, and how they're going to monitor that is they're hiring 6 bylaw enforcement individuals to monitor that specifically. So
Mr. Luloff actually forwarded me a communications scenario note when the show first started, and it has some kind of key highlights that I can just kind of read off here. So absolutely. It says the proposed bylaw would, and this is within City Council. It says require anyone seeking to list their principal residence on short-term rental platforms to first obtain a host permit from the city, which you mentioned. Have a separate permit system for cottage rentals, including rural vacation homes, cottages, secondary suites, and coach houses. Require short-term rental platforms and property managers to register with the city and share necessary data. Allow condominium corporations, landlords, and cooperatives to register with the city to block short-term rentals on their properties, and institute measures to address illicit rentals and other violations. So this is going to be in effect for 3 years, which they say is going to allow them time to study the effectiveness and suggest improvements. It's anticipated to cost $2.3 million, including 6 temporary full-time equivalent positions for administration, enforcement, and data analysis. All costs would be recovered through user fees and municipal accommodation tax revenues.
Does it say on there, does Mr. Luloff indicate what the commencement date or start date of this would be? And Matt, if you're listening, feel free to comment in the chat.
No, it does not. One thing I did find interesting though is that they, one of the reasons why they're pushing this through is because of neighboring properties of Airbnbs are saying that they kind of become the term they're using is ghost hotels, where it's just nonstop parties, late night things happening that shouldn't be happening on these properties, and people just have no recourse because they may not even know the owners, right? I mean, the owner could be, like you said, a corp or a foreign investor, and they're just pumping out that Airbnb revenue, which, Airbnb is an amazing service, but I mean, when it came out, it was definitely the Wild West, right? It was just kind of register your portfolio, show that you have a registered ID, and let people stay in your home for money. It was pretty, it was kind of the Wild West, and I think now they're kind of recuperating. And some of these things may be overkill for a couple of years, but as I said, I think 3 years is a reasonable sample size where they can actually get a feel for how it's being used and how the permits work and so on. I mean, these sorts of things, especially when it comes to safety and homes, and even mostly about the actual residents of the city, not people visiting, not the Airbnb users or maybe the foreign investors that own those properties. regulations aren't necessarily a bad thing when it comes to housing.
No, I think there's clearly a reason to do this. And I mean, the fact that they're kind of putting a timeline together to get it done, it makes complete sense. They're going to test it out, see what's working, and, report back to us.
I think it'll be interesting to see from a tourism standpoint and a cost of accommodations, though. This puts everything on the hotels to be the sole point of accommodations. It'll reduce a lot of those Airbnbs, which then forces people that are coming to nation's capital to visit from a tourism standpoint to stay in the hotel. So it'll be interesting coming out of this where there's a lot of hotels that are closed or that have shut down. The Sheraton closed down completely. Lord Elgin's been closed the entire past or since the pandemic basically started. So it'll be interesting to see when we're over this hump and tourism picks back up within, being the nation's capital, of how this impacts families, coming to visit, where they stay, the cost of accommodations. A lot of people use Airbnb because it's an apartment or it's a whole home, and less expensive. So it'll be interesting to see how that affects. And then obviously on the real estate side, how that affects
just supply. One question, Paul, in that thing you just read from Matt, that says that people can still do it, but they have to apply for a separate permit to have it as an Airbnb, right? And and there's going to be a tax on that?
No, you'd pay basically $110, I think, is the proposal to get the permit itself. And then I'm actually reading right now, it says the bylaw would enable the city to issue fines up to $100,000. Now, obviously, that's just worst case scenario. It says the terms of enforcement by the city, they basically would establish a maximum number of guests permitted. So if you get a permit, it'll say what the maximum number is based on the floor plan. And they could further reduce that number based on safety and noise concerns, it says. So maybe, in a really downtown, if you're renting a condo downtown and you have neighbors on either side, they might limit the capacity that you can have in that unit. Could suspend or revoke a host permit for violating the bylaw, for example, by facilitating a party house. Could use special fines under the Municipal Act to eliminate or reduce any potential economic gain from contravening the bylaw.
It's primarily for primary residents, though. So it's not, you're not taking your rental property anymore and having that as an Airbnb is effectively what they're getting away from.
So that's my question. So they're completely getting away from that. Like that, you can't even apply for a permit for that at all.
Correct. So as an example, I have a mixed use property in Centertown that we have a business on the ground floor, the apartment above. We've Paul's staying there right now for long term. We've had tenants for periods of time. In 2019, we used it briefly as an Airbnb. We wouldn't be able to. We have it in a corporation. It's not a primary residence. We would not be able to list it on any of those platforms, as an example.
So Matt is saying that it still does need to be passed by council. And he says the first step would be education before enforcement. And it's a 3-year pilot. So it would be brought into force with a focus on education.
And are there other cities doing this right now?
Toronto.
Do we know?
Toronto brought it in 2019, and they were actually the city was taken to court by a group that were looking to fight it, and they lost that challenge. It was about 1.5 years, and then it got instituted in end of 2019. So I know they saw a ripple where there was a lot of supply that came back on the market for condos and things like that. But yeah, Toronto had about 1.5 years legal battle of property owners fighting the city on it, and in 2019 they lost, and it got instituted. I believe that's roughly around the timelines. Yeah.
Greg, aside from condos, what have you seen as far as listings coming out? Like, are they still, I don't know if you have those numbers off the top of your head, but I know last week we saw double the listings come out. I have to assume that we're trending the same way.
I don't have any numbers for that today. I can tell you I did 4 transactions in the last week and a half. And it's just, for whatever reason, most of it was in Orleans. But the whole shift is that everyone's kind of confused of how to list a property now. And there's a lot of misinformation, and then there's a lot of things that are just still selling at astronomical amounts. And then there's another home that might be similar coming out, listing it at a similar price, and it's just sitting. And then on offer day, they're getting no offers. And then they're relisting it a few hours later, $50,000, $75,000 higher, because that's the price that they were expecting. I saw that happen on 3 properties this week. And
I know you mentioned that last week as well. So that this is obviously a common trend.
It's a common thing. And what we're seeing now is the no conveyance thing is kind of going away. I know I mentioned this before too, but it's more of the preemptive thing, but we are seeing properties come out with just a 24-hour irrevocable or it's just on the market, come in, not holding offers, which I think is amazing. But then it's like, I did a sale on a listing I had the other day and we were listed competitively. But we were worried that we weren't going to get a certain amount. Like we had a target in mind, and then the offers came in and they weren't what we wanted. And then all of a sudden last minute, this offer came in and it was fantastic. And I don't even know if in a month from now it would have happened like that. So there's still an urgency to buy. The prices are still going up on average. It's the numbers are still good, but it's definitely balancing out. But there's a little bit of confusion because some people are listing really low now to get the people through the door, because the number of showings I'm finding is down.
Gets the people going.
I don't know. It's wild. Like you really have, like, it's day by day. You got to look. You got to look and to see what's going on. Because,
it made me think of, I think it was an old Saturday Night Live skit, the lowered expectations. Oh, you remember that? Yeah. Oh, that song was just ringing through my head as you were talking.
But yeah, it's business as usual. I mean, there's more and more coming out every day. There's more options for buyers. I mean, I'm going out, I'm looking at, I can easily look at 4 or 5 at a time now, as opposed to 1. So, yeah. I mean, it's rock and roll. It's still good.
It's good for buyers. That's a good thing for buyers. It's still good for sellers out there as well. It's just setting those expectations, pricing the property properly. And
I think let me add, just because I don't want anyone listening to just be confused here. I know it's already confusing enough. If your house is amazing, you're still going to get top dollar. Okay. Basically, no matter what. I'm not saying it depending on where you list it, but that's a discussion for you and your realtor. But what I am seeing is that homes coming out that are not top notch, trying to list and compete in that realm and expecting those results. So that's where there's a little bit of an issue and a disconnect, I think, between the agents and the sellers. I'm hoping to see more of those come out listed more competitively for what they are. But that's the problem.
Yeah, I think
that's a big problem.
I think when we saw that big spike, there was people, as you said, that might have had, if you have a range, let's just take row houses, because every row house you have a range of, let's just say, 400 to 550. It could be on the same street, even depending on, finished basement, yard size, lot, et cetera, right? But the people that might have been in that 425 range, they might have seen someone overpay for a similar model at 500. And now they just assume that their place is also worth that 500 when really it should be in the 425 range, right? So there is kind of that misconception that if a home sells on your street, that you're going to get equal to or greater than, and that's just not always the case, right? There might be the right buyer for that specific house that had to buy, that had to overpay. Like there's also every single transaction is a different scenario. I mean, we see it all the time. People ask us, can we do this or that? It's like, well, you're like, you could work at the exact same employment, have the exact same position, have even the same salary as someone else, but you won't have the same buying power. Like there's so many different things that go into both the financing and the reasons why people buy homes that you can just never make any assumptions as far as what your house is actually worth, right? It's going to be, it's always going to be kind of rolling the dice. You have a ballpark. It's going to be between this and this, but you can't have those expectations of, well, you're just setting yourself up for disappointment. Like if you're listing at 499, thinking you're going to get 6 and then you only get 575, like you're still going to walk away disappointed, even though you got 75,000 over asking, which I think is the wrong way to approach it.
No. And I mean, like back to that what I was saying about not getting offers, it's crazy. Like I get, I'm showing properties and I'm getting calls from the agents. Greg, you guys want to, they going in? Are they going to submit an offer? And I'm like, no, man. And I'm like, no offers. He's like, no, and they're like, I don't know what to do. Right. And then he's like, my client expects a certain amount. And I'm like, I know it's challenging. But you're like, as an agent, you're screwed if you're not having the proper conversation with your sellers. Like you're just, you're going to get fired.
And I think that's that goes hand in hand with something we've talked about a number of times when dealing with an agent that maybe doesn't do enough transactions as well. Like they're not doing enough deals, that they're having those conversations with their clients that are based on sales from a month and a half ago. Their finger isn't on the pulse of, what places are actually going for, what they should be setting that expectation, because it is fluctuating week by week. And what somebody got 3 weeks ago is not what you're going to get today. And it is a constantly evolving market. And so it's certainly something where it's important to be with somebody that knows what they're doing, is constantly in the market. And
just listen to the Ottawa Real Estate Podcast and stay in the loop.
Or just listen to us.
We were laughing. We were laughing at
one deal a year and just listen to us.
Yeah, we were laughing at the headlines coming out from the federal government and CMHC and so on that are 3 weeks behind what's talked about on TOREP. We think it might be a supply issue. So welcome to March 25th on TOREP. No, but it's true. I mean, I think we have a good kind of what we see. So many, like even Dave and I, we see totally different clients all week, even though we're in the same industry. Greg, you're seeing a whole different list of clients. So, I mean, we just have a lot of hands-on experience, and we're seeing what's actually truly happening in the market, right? As we said, there's kind of a delay if you're not actually actively in the market and you're just hearing what's going on, or if you're, a policymaker or something like that, you're not in it, right? You don't have the, you're basically hearing it from the sources as opposed to knowing it yourself, right?
It's true. You got to be active.
Sorry.
You can't be one of those people that's just talking about all this stuff and not actually in it. You got to be fighting the fight.
Shall we roll into the mood boost, gentlemen?
I was just about to say, let's get into the mood boost.
Great. Right. Why not? It's Friday. I got 4 today. And for anyone who is new to listening, basically we end the show with some mood boosts from either my brother or my father. And today I went 2 and 2. So we'll see how this shakes out. And I'm not going to tell you which is which. We're just going to go. Number 1. They're good today. Number 1. What happened to the rancher who lost his cattle? Nobody's heard.
Yes.
Number 2. I heard a story recently about 2 men who stole a calendar. They got 6 months each.
Gold.
Number 3. Why should you never date a tennis player? Because love means nothing to them. And last but not least, what is a quiet Hawaiian laugh? Aloha.
Wow. Those were all
Aloha.
Fabulous.
I'm going to make the guess. First 2 were Bill, last 2 were Tim.
I don't know if I should disclose. I think we just keep it a mystery.
All right.
They were all fire. They were all fire to that. That's the most important. But so again, we might as well reiterate for anyone tuning in for the first time, this is the live recording of the Ottawa Real Estate Podcast. We record every Friday, 10 a.m. on Facebook. And thank you for everyone that does tune in. I know a lot of people just kind of throw it on the background while they're working or cleaning or whatever they're doing. So thanks for everyone who tunes in live. And then the show itself, we release Tuesday mornings at 10 o'clock. So I know there's some confusion around the YouTube channel. So on YouTube, we have 2 different playlists. We have one that is the full episode, and then we have another one that is kind of a key excerpt from the show itself. So you'll see there's kind of breakouts, which are usually about 5 to 10 minutes long, and then there's separate videos that are the full video. So Tuesdays at 10 a.m. we release everything, breakouts, full show. It's available on YouTube, all of your podcast platforms, etc. And then for anyone who really wants to get the latest, you can listen Tuesday and then tune in Friday, and then you get the double down. You get to double down on the info.
Please like and subscribe. We appreciate you all.
Yeah, seriously, you guys are great. It's we really appreciate the support. We're growing rapidly now.
April 30th is next Friday. It'll be the last one in April. We'll go out with a bang. What should we do? Should we bring on?
No, I think we should answer questions next week. I think it should be a question period.
Q&A.
Yeah, Q&A.
For all those who have made it to the end here of this week's episode, please message us with any questions.
Yeah.
Facebook,
We'll hit Reddit too. We'll get on Reddit. We'll get on Red Flag. We'll get some questions out there. And thanks to Mr. Luloff as well for giving us some insight on the Airbnb stuff. And thanks to all the listeners. We'll see you guys next Friday. Keep it legal, keep it vertical, Have a great weekend.
As always.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Deuces, everyone.
Later.
The Ottawa Real Estate Podcast is brought to you by Referral Mortgages, Blue Panda Realty, and Stephen Hopkins Video. Thanks for tuning in, and please remember to like, comment, share, and most importantly, subscribe. We'd love to hear from you.